My name is Lean Tran Layton, and I'm a practicing immigration attorney in the United States. And I'm an immigrant myself. Throughout my life and career, I've had the privilege of meeting people from all over the world who have immigrated to the United States. And I've heard some amazing stories, and I want you to hear them too. These stories will make you feel a range of emotions, but most of all, I hope you will be left feeling inspired. Welcome to the Immigrant Voice. If you like what you've been hearing on this podcast, share it with others and leave us a comment or review wherever you're listening to it. Also, remember to subscribe so you can hear our upcoming episodes.
So my next guest is somebody I've known since high school, and we'll just leave out how long that's been. So I'm excited for you to hear from her. And so why don't you introduce who you are and where you were born and how long you've been in the States?
Yeah, thanks, Lane. It's a pleasure to be here. So my name is Gayana. I've been in the United States since 1993. I'm originally born in Azerbaijan. That's a country in the Middle East, but I'm of Armenian descent. And so you can say I'm Armenian. And I speak Russian fluently as my first language of choice. So Armenia and Azerbaijan used to be part of the USSR and before the collapse of the Soviet Union, and Russian was the primary language that was spoken. We do also know our ethnic language, so I do speak a little Armenian, but Russian is primarily my language.
That's so cool that people can retain their native language even after coming to the state. I think that's awesome. So good for you for still speaking it fluently. That's awesome.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, and thank you. But my Armenian has suffered tremendously since I've been in the States and had to learn a new language, which was English. And so while I maintained Russian because I spoke it primarily at home, and to this day my parents still speak it at home. I think that's why I still was able to maintain that language. But because I don't use Armenian very often, it's definitely has, diminished quite a bit.
Yeah. So how old were you when you came to the States then?
I was 9 years old when I came to the States. I came to the States in 93. I was 9 years old. I spoke no English, and I came here on an F1 student visa. In the 90s, back before the terrorist attacks of 9/11, the F1 visa process was a little different than it is now. And so I came here originally as an F1 student visa, but I was in elementary school. And my visa would last through my studies until I graduated from high school. Mm-hmm. On a student visa throughout my entire high school, or I guess my career while I was in school. And then once I graduated from high school in 2001, I went back to Russia for a year.
I did not know that. I had no clue. So yeah, we were in high school together and I had no idea that you were on an F1 visa the whole time. Not that I would have even known what that was, but I had no idea.
Not a lot of people knew that. And I tried to, I think as part of coming to the United States as a young child, you want to do everything that you can to assimilate. Mm-hmm. As our parents, it's certainly not the case to rush quickly to assimilate into anything, really. But I think as children, or I think for me anyway, it was very important for me to quickly try to assimilate into America and become liked by my peers. And so I wanted to try to maintain that, hey, I'm an American so much. But yeah, not a lot of folks knew that I was on a student visa. But yeah, and once I graduated, it expired. And so that led me to go back.
So you went back to Russia for a year. What did you do while you were there?
So what happened is I came here on a student visa because originally 2 years prior to that, my grandmother came to the United States as a refugee. And the way that she came about to come to the United States is because Azerbaijan, where a country where I was born, it's a Muslim country. And to this day, it's a Muslim country in the Middle East. And Armenians are Christian. And although Armenians lived in Azerbaijan, and Christians and Muslims in those countries lived together peacefully under the Soviet Union, once the Soviet Union collapsed at the end of the 1980s, those countries became independent. And once they became independent, they started saying, well, it became sort of like an ethnic cleansing where you were either going to convert to being a Muslim or you basically had no choice and you die. And so the war broke out in the late 1980s. And that forced my whole entire family actually to move from Azerbaijan to Armenia. And during that time, the United States came in and realized that there was a war going on and offered refugee statuses for certain Armenian families. And there was a big wave that came of Armenian families that came specifically to Utah in the beginning of the 1990s. My grandmother came here in 1991 and placed in the Rose Park area of Salt Lake City. She didn't really have a choice where she ended up. It was a family that sponsored her, an LDS family that sponsored her. And she basically didn't even know where Salt Lake City or where Utah was even on the map because, you hear of big cities like Los Angeles and New York, but you get to hear of Salt Lake City, Utah. Yeah. So she ended up here and they had a little apartment for her with a small little mattress in Rose Park. And so she lived in that apartment. And when I moved to the United States, I moved in with her in that apartment with her and lived with my grandmother for 12 years until I went back to see my parents again. So because I was on a student visa here, I was so afraid to go back because I knew that if I was to go back, I wasn't going to be able to necessarily get the same type of a status again.
Yeah.
And so I remained in the United States. And so my mom came and visited, but I never left. And also my grandmother feared that if I was to leave, that potentially I couldn't get back in. And so she was like, you're never leaving, you're staying here. So while I was going to school here, and that's, going through elementary, junior high, high school, my grandmother became a U.S. citizen during this time. And what she did was she applied for family sponsorship under 3 categories. So my mother is a daughter of a U.S. citizen. And so she was able to, and we were still underage at the time. We were not of age 21. And so we were all able to come to the United States based on that visa. So when my visa expired, it worked out perfectly. I don't know how, but it worked out perfectly to where I went back, and within 9 months, we were scheduled for an interview to come to the United States. I thought I was going to be in Russia a lot longer than a year, because I just thought, well, I'm here, and who knows when I'll ever be able to come to the United States. But it took about 12 months and I was able to come back.
Wow. Yeah, it really did work out with the timing.
It worked out perfect because when I was leaving after I graduated from high school, and I had to say goodbye to, all my friends that I made through the years, and TJ, who I've dated for, my entire, as entire high school life. It was really hard to say goodbye to everything and everyone that I knew.
Yeah.
And say, see ya. I don't know when I'll be back, but so.
What was that like going back to Russia after having been in the U.S. for so long?
Very scary.
Yeah.
Very, very scary. And that's why I feel for the dreamers, because I can completely be in their shoes. Yeah. And when you have been brought up in a country, especially like the United States as a child, it's so different because when you go back home, it's not home.
Yeah.
I was completely under a culture shock. Yes, I spoke the language, but that didn't mean anything. I mean, everything was foreign. The people were foreign. Some of the language slang was foreign. They could quickly tell that I was foreign, that I didn't belong.
Yeah.
And it was hard. It was very hard. I had no friends. I mean, yes, I had my family, but again, life continued as, for them. I came and it was like, oh, great. At first it was like all family was wanting to come and see me, and, everything was, exciting. And then it all died down. And it's like, okay, so what do I do now? And I came to Moscow, Russia in September. And it was already, super cold there, brutally cold. And so I spent pretty much the entire winter. I mean, there it's always cold. I was there throughout the brutal, winters. And it's like, what do? You don't do a whole lot. I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of exercising. I did a lot of sightseeing around the entire city. But I literally could not wait until I got back home. I would call back home here. I mean, almost every weekend. Trying to stay in touch with family and friends, but it was one of the most difficult times that I can remember.
Yeah. What do you think was the most difficult part about it?
I think the biggest part for me was the culture shock and in terms of the people.
Yeah.
Corruption, the government corruption there. There's really no freedom of speech or choice or anything like that. I mean, your voice is not heard at all. I'm completely brought up in a different way where we have, even as immigrants come into the United States, we still have our rights. There, that's not how it is. My first thing my parents told me when I first came to Russia was, watch out. They kidnap young girls like you for ransom. And so it was like, oh, great. Worry about, like, how am I supposed to, like, watch after the Russian mob? Like, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
So that kind of stuff that I was like, whoa, wow. I don't know anything about this. I would have to make sure that I only use public transportation where there's plenty of people around me. Couldn't get into taxi cabs at all because you can't trust taxi cabs. You get pulled over by a cop, by a police officer, you just bribe them. You give them money and you just keep driving. You're like, wow, this is different. People are very angry. Here, you smile at someone walking by. There, they literally will gripe at you. I smiled at somebody and one lady just quickly looked at me. He's like, what the hell are you like smiling at? Who are you?
Gosh.
Like, oh my God. I mean,
wow.
It was just the people, the life of just day-to-day life. Completely different.
Yeah.
Especially what I was used to, growing up in Salt Lake City. So
yeah. What was it like seeing your parents after so long?
It was hard. It was hard seeing them. I mean, of course I was happy, but we quickly saw how different I was. It's like they left a 9-year-old girl in America. And then when I saw them, they expected to see, maybe an older Armenian, of theirs. They were completely dumbfounded when I came out the plane. I had and looked Americanized, as they call it, Westernized, Americanized. My way of thinking is completely different than theirs. And so we quickly started to butt heads. And because it's like, you don't know who I am. I don't know who you are. And for the first 5 to 6 years or so, a long time for us to like live peacefully together.
Yeah. What made them have you go to the States by yourself at 9?
Well, because my grandma was already here in the United States. And prior to my grandma coming to the United States, I always lived with my grandmother. I have a younger brother and we're only 1 year apart. And so when I was born, when my brother was born quickly right after me, my mom couldn't handle 2 babies, right? So my mom stepped up and said, look, I'll handle it. I'll take care of Gayana if you want to take care of your son.
Yeah.
And so, I lived with grandma almost all my life. When grandma moved, when the war started and grandma moved to the United States, it hurt me because I was like, my grandma, so grandma somehow talked my mom into doing this F1 visa. Grandma was like, don't worry, it's only going to be for maybe a couple of years. And then, you guys will be able to come to the United States. Mind you, didn't do any type of research, and so my mom was like, okay, this would be a great, opportunity for Guyana to get a great education and come to the States and keep you company. No one really realized it was going to end up being, a 12-year span.
Right. Do you remember, so at 9, you probably remember a little bit about where you were born and how, what the country was like. So what do you remember about your country?
I don't have very good memories of my country, especially Azerbaijan. I was very young when we moved. I was 6 years old, and I don't have very good memories of it because the war already started at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was already starting at the time. You could already sense that something was, that people were not getting along, and there was a lot of hatred and talks of the war. I just remember a lot of my mom worrying about us because we were Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And she would make us wear, the head wraps, jihadis, so that people didn't think that we were Christian children. And so, being a child and trying to understand, why are we wearing all of this headgear and why do we have to wear it in public? This is not who we are. And then when the war started, and the things that as a child that I did see, burning of homes, raping of women in front of their husbands and fathers.
Wow.
It was a lot of things that, kids should never see.
Right.
We had to flee our home. Our home was burned because they got word that we were a Christian family that was living in our home, and my dad got word that our house is going to be attacked by friends of his that were of Azerbaijani descent, but because they were friends for so many years. So I just remember one night my dad woke us up in the middle of the night, and you're a 5-6-year-old kid, you don't know what's going on.
Right.
So I just remember my dad putting us in the back of the car, and we just kept driving, and we just drove through the borders into Armenia. And with, at the border, there were soldiers that were shooting at the cars that were driving past into Armenia because they knew that there were just people fleeing.
Right.
And then when we came to Armenia, it was chaos. I mean, refugees everywhere.
Wow.
From Azerbaijan, 100,000 families, if not more, displaced completely. So Armenia was trying to set up refugee camps and camps everywhere for all of these people. And, some people were going back home to try to bring whatever they can still, because you literally run with just whatever clothes on you have on your back. But then you think, what if I can go back for more, literally like right across the border, the two countries border each other. And my dad would, take off in the middle of the night and try to drive for as long as he can so he can bring more things back. And so it was, I just remember a lot of chaos. There was just chaos. There was never a stability. It was always running from something. You're always hiding who you are, what you are.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lot,
Yeah. So how long did it take for your family to settle in Armenia?
So we arrived in Armenia in 1989.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, the only reason why we were able to not live in refugee camps was because my grandfather, my dad's dad, had a little bit of money, and he was able to buy us a small home in the capital of Armenia called Yerevan.
Mm-hmm.
And we lived there. And otherwise, we would have been living in refugee camps along with the rest. And for a little while there, when my grandpa got us that house, it had like a nice, beautiful garden that had just fruit trees everywhere and vegetables everywhere. And it felt for just about a year or so like normal childhood. I think when my childhood, that's like the first thing that comes to my mind, is being able to, play with my grandpa in his garden and feeling like there wasn't going to be anything that came your way, that we just faced.
Yeah.
But that was very short-lived. In Armenia suffered a very, very big earthquake when we were there, and our house was damaged. And quickly, my family, or my mom and dad, realized that it would be hard to start all over yet again.
Mm-hmm.
And so they decided that they needed to leave and go to Moscow.
Mm-hmm.
That's where my dad could probably do more work and get more money.
Mm-hmm.
And so my dad and my mom decided to leave Armenia after about a year and a half of living there.
Mm-hmm. So then you all moved to Moscow.
Yep.
And then
we all moved to Moscow, and that's
Mm-hmm.
when I came to the United States quickly after that. I didn't live in Moscow very long. I was only there for about 2 months, and then I came to the United States.
How did you feel about coming to the States? Do you remember?
Super excited. I remember being super excited because I just remember my mom saying, we're going to America. We're going to see grandma. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing that's ever happened. You know, because when grandma won the refugee lottery,
Yeah.
it was like a dream come true. Here it is. There's a way for someone from the family to go to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother came here. Of course, she was like, oh, get Gayana here, as quickly as possible. And then we'll get you all of you guys, we'll bring you guys back, at a later time. And so, it was like, okay, let's go to America. So my mom went to the embassy in Moscow, got herself a tourist visa, and, came to the United States. I already had my F1 visa going because my grandma was already all over it.
Mm-hmm.
I came to the States, I had a change of status, and that's when I got my F1. And then my mom stayed for just a little bit just to make sure that, I was enrolled in school properly. Everything was going well.
What do you remember the first thing, like what was your first thought when you stepped into America?
I remember one of my first instances was we arrived in the United States. The first where we landed was in Alaska because our layover was in Alaska. And I just it was cold and snowy. It was the middle of January. And then when we arrived in Salt Lake City, it was dark. So it was already in the middle of the night. And so I remember just coming home. I mean, we're excited to see grandma. It was like a beautiful homecoming. And we go to bed, we wake up the next morning. My grandma says, okay, we're going to, go to the grocery store. My grandma takes me to the Smiths on 600 North and Redwood Road, the 10th West and 6th North.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Smiths,
exactly
right?
Which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So my first impression of America was I walk into that Smiths and I'm standing there and I see just the abundance. A grocery store here in the United States is. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is Disneyland. I remember just unleashing on the Smith store. And so that was like my memory was just the abundance because where we came from in Armenia, store shelves were completely empty, starvation everywhere, people dying and famished. And then here you have a store full of 20 different types of sauces to put on a potato. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, oh my gosh. So that to this day remains my memory. And to this day, when I still step foot into that old Smith, I still think about that. I'm like, I can't believe like this was like everything to me.
Yeah. And what was school like for you in the beginning?
School was difficult in the beginning. I remember going to first grade. I remember graduating from first grade, but then the war and us having to move so much, I didn't go to second and third. So when I first came to the States, I went straight into fourth with no English whatsoever. It was very difficult. I would just literally sit there for hours on end, not knowing what anyone was saying, what was talked about. No one can translate anything for me. The kids were very cruel. I got teased a lot. But I told myself that I was going to learn the language by the time I came back into fifth grade. I mean, I had a goal in mind. I was like, I don't know what it takes. I remember I told my grandmother to buy me a dictionary, a Webster's dictionary, like a small handheld pocket Webster's dictionary that had Russian and English. And so she bought it for me. And I came into fourth grade almost at the end of fourth grade. And so I quickly had summer vacation that was starting. And so by summer vacation, not only did I enroll in ESL, which is English second language that we had, at the elementary school during the summer semesters. But also after English second language courses were done, I would come home and I had a goal of learning 100 words a day in their translations. And by the end of summer, I could pretty much almost fluently speak the language. So much that when I entered into 5th grade, my teachers were like, wait, are you like the same student that we just saw literally 6 months ago that had no idea like how to speak at all? And then when I graduated with my 6th grade, I was the valedictorian of that little elementary school. I had like all these amazing awards and everything by the time I finished.
Wow.
I was like, I have to learn English and I have to learn it and know it better than the natives themselves.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. I love that at such a young age that you had that drive and that ambition to be like, you know what, I'm going to learn English and whatever it takes.
You know, it was all because of my family. They really pushed, my family's both educated. My grandmother was an attorney in our country. Mm-hmm. So I lived with someone who was very educated and pushed for education was everything. Yeah. And I knew that the reason why I was brought to the United States as a 9-year-old kid away from family and everybody for so many years was because they wanted to make a better life for me.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about us immigrant kids, but we truly do, like, we want to for our family. Like, we don't want to disappoint them, you know? And I never wanted that to be in vain. I never wanted the 12 years that I was apart from my family to be in vain. So they could be like, oh, we sent Gayana over there just so she could just, mess around and what we wanted her to do ultimately. And so that was my goal. No matter what I was doing, I wanted to make sure that I still succeeded at what I came to accomplish. So,
yeah, I can completely relate to that too. It's like, my parents never had the opportunity to go to school and do what they wanted to do. And so in some ways there was a lot of pressure on me because they were always like, school, do what you need to do to become successful. But like, ultimately, I hope that they now feel that it wasn't all in vain, right? That like, okay, I made sure that I supported my kids in whatever way I could so that they'd be successful. And I can certainly relate to that same sentiment. And I mean, I'm sure your parents and your grandma are very proud of you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. It was hard, for my parents to realize that when sort of all came about when, I met them again when I was in my early 20s. They at first were like, oh no, we made a big mistake. You're so Americanized. You're completely different than what we want, what we thought you were going to be or how you wanted to, to be. And so it came with a lot of struggle because of the fact that we were apart for so long. They truly didn't know who their daughter was, really. Yeah. And so we had to relearn how to live with each other. Mm-hmm. And for me to be like, this is who I am. And this is, the new me, but not all is lost. I'm still, keeping with the family traditions and things like that. But that doesn't mean that I can still be American. I can still be an Armenian American, but that doesn't mean I've forgotten my roots or where I'm coming from or anything like that.
And I think in some ways it's kind of an unrealistic expectation for people to be like, okay, you live in America, but be completely Armenian or Russian. Yes. Like, it's just impossible. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Exactly. No matter how much my grandma was, strict with me during my high school times. I mean, I thought she was trying to make my life hell. No matter what she would do, it was still important for me to be like, this is who I am. Yeah. But it took a lot of convincing and trust for them to be like, oh, okay, maybe maybe it wasn't all in vain.
Yeah. It's like this clash, of just cultures. And like I said, I just think it's an unrealistic expectation.
Absolutely. And, they came to the States in 2003. And so to them, they also had their own culture shock.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my gosh, everything's so different than what we really thought it was going to be. And so for them, it took a while to assimilate. My brother, who I said was just a year younger than I am, he came here at the age of 20, and it took him, at least 5 to 8 years to be able to say, hey, I can feel good about living here and calling this my home.
Mm-hmm.
It took me like 6 months, but I also came here at the age of 9 as opposed to 20. So
yeah. And I think like for my parents, they came here when they were in their 20s. Now I feel like they're pretty Americanized themselves,
Really,
just having lived here for so long. They still speak Chinese to each other, and they're still very much Chinese for sure, but just some of their thought processes. And actually my parents went to Vietnam last year. My dad had gone back a few times since we came here, but my mom had never gone back. And last year was her first time going back since we came to the US. And she was like, it's so different. Obviously, it's very, very different there, but she didn't really like it that much for whatever reason. She was like, I would have rather been in the States. So yeah, it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, my parents have struggled to assimilate. I can't say that they're definitely not Americanized yet. It's been almost 17 years since they've been in the States, and it's been very hard. My dad still speaks almost no English. He chooses not to, I think, more so than he can't. He rejects it a little more than my mom, I think. Mm-hmm. My mom speaks pretty good English, but again, it's still quite broken, and I have to do a lot of the translating still, especially when it comes to like medical or legal jargon, completely over their head.
Yeah.
My brother, I would say, is the most assimilated out of all because he did come here at the age of 20, and so now he feels more at home than anything else. But Dad, I would say, has struggled the most. He sometimes even has talks about potentially going back. And so I think that he, even though my mom's like, where are you going? I'm staying here. So where are you headed to without me? But I think that he's truly struggled a little more than not. But I also think that it has something to do with attitude too. Mm-hmm. My mom was very open to coming to the States because she's been waiting for so long. And whereas my dad he hated knowing that time was coming, that he had to like leave his homeland and come. Yeah. So, they both have sort of different ways of looking at it. And it shows in their progression of just assimilation. I see how my mom has progressed a lot more and my dad has held himself, back because of it.
That's interesting. When you were here and your parents were in Russia, did you talk to them often?
I did. I mean, and often probably about, I would say once a month. Back then, we didn't have the cell phones and all the cool technology like we have now.
Yeah.
So I remember, it was very expensive to call home. I think it was like, several dollars a minute. And so we would try to limit, as much as we could, because at the end of the day, I lived with grandma and grandma was on Social Security income and we didn't have much and lived in a small little apartment in Rose Park. And so we didn't have very much resources. So I remember talking to my mom like maybe once a month, and sometimes it would be like once every 2 months. So it wasn't very often. Mm-hmm. She only came to the States twice to see me. Once when I was in junior high. Actually, only once. So once when I was in junior high.
Mm-hmm. With your grandma, so your grandma raised you essentially. Mm-hmm. What were her expectations of you?
She wanted me to become an attorney. She wanted me to, make something of myself. Always told me to be independent. She preached that for me from the get-go. She always said, no matter what, get a good education, get a great job, be independent, don't depend on a man ever. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of like what she instilled in me. And, I tried to follow that as much as I could, except for I told her, I don't know if I want to go to law school. So let's hold off on that. But, I tried to make sure that I lived up to that. No matter what, I realized I was still a teenager. There were so many times that I would disappoint her or do things that maybe were not what she wanted. But
Mm-hmm.
I think I probably accomplished some of the goals that she set out for me. And that's make sure that you get an education, which I did, get a great job, which I did, and so I feel a lot more secure where I am now, and that I'm able to not only have a great job, but also help my family. And so it's important to me. And
Yeah.
that's what I continue doing what I do, and why I'm even in the legal field in the first place.
Yeah. So you didn't go to law school, but then you ended up in the legal field. So tell the listeners what you do now.
Yeah, so I decided not to go to law school, but I've been doing law for about 15 years now. I started in the courts, working for judges as clerk, and then went to the private sector. And now I'm a senior trademark paralegal with Holland and Hart, which is one of the best Mountain West law firms in the state.
Do you think you'll ever go to law school?
Probably not. Probably not. I think to myself, it's I love working with lawyers, but I don't know if I necessarily want to be one.
Yeah. So with your grandma, just going back to your grandma, do you feel like there was a lot of like cultural clashes between the two of you?
Oh yeah. She had even more of a hard time understanding who I was, and because of the fact that she was like 70 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and 15, 16.
Yeah.
And so our age gap was just so off the spectrum that even sometimes when I would think, even if my mom was here, she would still be, her brain is much younger and that she can process things in a different way. She was very, very strict with me. I don't know if you remember much. She was so strict with me, and she was strict all the way through the end of my high school. I had strict curfews. I wasn't allowed to talk to certain people. I wasn't able to dress a certain way, wear makeup, dye my hair. I mean, it was go to dances. I was go to every single high school dance that I went to. She had no idea that I was a guy or a boy.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was silly things like that, that, okay, I'm not going to allow you to hinder on my memories here. Like, this is a big deal, but it was hard. It was hard to sometimes get on the same page as her. I found myself getting on the same page with her later in life.
Yeah.
As I started to mature, she started battling Alzheimer's. And Alzheimer's is just such a horrible disease that just ravishes the people you love. And so in the end, she completely forgot anything and everything, but except for me. She always remembered, even to the very end. She remembered who I was. And so that was really neat to see towards the end of her life. But she passed away in 2017. So it was hard. It was hard. It was somebody who was so close to me, closer than my mom. But she was 93. So at least she lived a good life.
Yeah. It's like I have similar experience with my parents too, and just how strict they were. And I just remember thinking like, oh, you guys are so annoying. Like, I still want to be a teenager. And so I can relate to that completely. And it's not till you get older when you can look back and think, okay, even though I still don't agree with some of the things that they had tried to enforce, but I can see why, right? Like I understand that. And what's interesting is that, like with my parents, I saw how hard they worked and how much they did for us. And like, I know in a weird way, their strictness kind of prevented me from going down a bad road.
Same.
Like, because there were times, I had many opportunities to do things that were not good. But in the back of my mind, I would just hear my parents, or I would just picture how disappointed they would be in me if I did this thing or went down this path. And it always, in some ways, pulled me back and kind of set me straight. you know?
That's exactly, I completely understand what you mean, because that's the same reason why I would come home when grandma would say, night was it for you, no matter how old you are. And because I would hate to see the disappointment in her face. Like, I hated knowing that she would worry and that I could potentially cause a heart attack on a or something, you know. She was like 75, 80, and I didn't want her to worry too much because she worried so much. And, and I was dating TJ, and that was a big no-no. I mean, it was huge to them. And even later in life, it took many years for all of us to say, I agree with you on a lot of things, but this is one thing I won't be budging on. I will not budge. So it took a long time for my family to, it was hard because not only did they came to the States and saw, someone who was Americanized, but their daughters also was someone who was African American. And that was something that it was very difficult for them to accept. Yeah. And so it had to be where I had to say, look, this is the person who I love, chose to be with, and who I will continue to be with. And so it's either you get on the bandwagon or you're going to left behind. To where I found a newfound respect for my family when they said, as long as he makes you happy, then we're happy. I never really thought would ever come out of their mouth. Yeah. And so that's when I thought, maybe my family does truly want the best for me and want happiness, even if that's something that they might not agree with or may not want for me in my future. But as an adult, that's the decision that I make, and that's what I'm going to roll with. And now they just adore him completely, and it's something that I've never even imagined would ever happen. So,
yeah, I remember. I remember when you couldn't tell your family about him.
Oh, yeah. It took a toll on our relationship, especially when we got older. I mean, when you're kids, you're kind of like, no family's really going to take a relationship too serious. Yeah. But when you're old enough to say, no, this is the person you want to be with, it's hard. But the fact that I was able to change, my parents' mind was pretty impressive for me.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy it all worked out for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So what would you say is an accomplishment that you're most proud of?
To be honest with you, I think that everything that I have so far that I've been able to accomplish, my education, my career, my family that I have, is probably going to be my greatest accomplishments. I know that I came here for a reason, and that's to get an education. I did that and proved that I could do that here in the United States without any help. I came here when it was just me and grandma. Grandma was old, and I had to sort of fight my way through. All the jobs that I've ever gotten was because of me, and no one ever sort of, handed me anything or said, hey, let me get you a job or let me do this. It was all throughout my accomplishments. Where I am now, I truly enjoy my job. I work with amazing people. And then my family aspect, it was a huge accomplishment for me to be able to tell my parents that I'm marrying a man of African American descent, and them accepting that. And because for many years, I fought the stereotypes that they had of what it is to be a Black man. And my husband and I hopefully were able to change their mind, of what a typical stereotypical Black man should be. Right. And for someone who came here from a completely different country, you can't even change people's minds that live here in the United States on some of these topics. And someone who is completely from a different country, are not used to seeing, interracial marriages at all. Were completely uncommon. And to be able to change at least one person's mind of how they think has just been a big accomplishment all on its own.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm so happy to know that you've done all these things, and I think it's so awesome.
Thank you.
You should be very proud of yourself.
Well, I appreciate that. I try. Just like everyone else, you get down on yourself and you think that you should be farther in life. And I'm approaching the 40 years. I just turned 38 and I have 2 more years to be 40. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, should I be here? Should I be doing more? You're thinking, what can you do to continue to evolve and grow and not stay stagnant?
Yeah, but that's everyone. That's most people. It's just, you're always wondering if there's more you could do, or maybe you should be at this place in your life, but why aren't you? And so, that saying, comparison is the thief of all joy. I have to agree with that one.
Exactly.
But yeah, you should be so proud of how far you've come.
I appreciate that.
Everything that you've accomplished. Yeah. So I'm excited for you. And yeah,
same with you. I know, your story briefly as well, and all the things that I watch you have accomplished, and, you have a wonderful career, a beautiful family. So it's always good to see, your colleagues, your peers that you've gone to school with and that you had some sort of a connection with. And when you reached out to me, it brought back so many great memories of when we were in high school.
Yeah.
Carefree, and just what are the odds of, my husband's, former best friend living right next door to you?
I know.
What are the odds, right? But that's the beauty of living like in a small little city and going to school with some amazing people that you're still able to stay in touch with after that many years,
Yeah. Yeah. It's really cool. So my last question for you is, what's something that you're most grateful for about living in America?
Our Bill of Rights. At the end of the day, we can be on the worst day still much better than other countries. And that's what I truly appreciate about the United States. No matter what, we still have our freedom of rights. It's so important to have that freedom to be able to speak your mind. I experienced that when I went to Russia, where people are afraid to speak up about anything against their government, against their people, against just different ideologies, different thought processes. It's not normal. Here we're allowed to be free, freedom thinkers. We can so much in that way. We have freedom of religion. We can be whoever we want to be. We're not oppressed because of what we look like or who we are. Now, that has been challenged living with someone who is a Black man in the United States. He has a different perception of what it looks like to him as opposed to me. So that's a different topic on its own. But nevertheless, we still have a choice. We still have a voice, and that's what I'm grateful for.
Yeah,
and we have the choice to complain about why this is happening, why that's not happening. Whereas other countries and other people, they have no choice. If they have a dictatorship and it's going to be that way for 100 years, then that's what they're facing, but at least here we have the right to change that.
Yeah. Yeah. In some of those countries, the dissenters just disappear off the face of the earth.
Exactly. You say something bad about someone, like you'll say something bad about Putin in a newspaper, all of a sudden they are no longer to be seen or heard ever again. It's like, interesting. I wonder why.
Yeah.
At least here people bash the president and still get to live the next day,
Yeah, it's a privilege living in America.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Gayana. It was a lot of fun catching up with you. And
it was so great. Thank you so much for having me. This was a wonderful time.
Yeah, and really getting to sit down and hear your story. And like I said, I'm just so happy to hear you winning and doing great things.
Thank you so much. And it was good to see you. And I continuously look to your page and I see that you're doing such great things. And I learned from you in terms of all the news and updates on U.S. in terms of what's happening, what fees are increasing, what test questions are they adding.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for keeping me up to date with all your info. It's been really, I still keep my eyes out for immigration stuff just because I'll still have family members who ask me all the time. And so.
Yeah, of course. You're so welcome.